All right, so up to this point, we've been talking about how to write paragraph proofs using all the definitions and theorems and postulates you have learned so far in geometry. Now, while paragraph proofs are a great way to show a proof, it doesn't exactly organize it very well, and it's not the most common way to um, prove something in geometry. All right, so today we're going to talk about another type of proof. All right, so just to go over what a proof is again, a proof is a logical argument that shows why a statement is true or sometimes false. Okay, usually it's to prove why it's true. All right, so we will be writing proofs in two-column format. All right, this method allows you to see both the mathematical steps and their justifications side by side. Each statement of proof must have a reason. Okay, so this type of proof is called a two-column proof. And there are some different steps that we need to go through in order to create a well-written and well thought out uh, proof in geometry, okay? And as it says in green, it says each statement in the proof must have a reason, okay? This needs to be either a definition, postulate, or something that you have learned in geometry. All right, so we're going to go through how to write a proof, and this is a step-by-step guide on how you need to write this. So the first step is you list the given information, okay? A lot of times you're given certain information in order to solve that proof, and you want to write that down first. Okay, you're going to usually, if not always, have a diagram in your proof. So the next step is to use the information from the diagram to solve your proof. Okay, you need to give a reason for every statement. Like I said before, this is a very important part of writing a geometric proof. Okay. All right, you need to use the given information, okay, it will give you information, as well as definitions, postulates, and theorems as reasons. So that could be things like a definition of a vertical angle. You could say the different properties, like the transitive property, the reflexive property. Those types of properties are also very good uh, things to use, all right? That's also why I have been having you write down all these postulates and theorems in your notebook. So in a certain area, so you can look back on them very easily and find all these reasons. All right, the next bullet point on how to write a proof is list the statements in order. This is very important. If a statement relies on a previous statement, it must come later in the proof. A lot of times you'll see something that looks obvious in a proof, but if it cannot be proven yet, but it can be proven later on in your order, you need to make sure that it stays in that correct order, okay? And you'll see what I mean in a second. All right, and the last is end the proof with the statement you are trying to prove. Okay, your last statement, whether you have 4, 7, however many, the last statement always needs to be what you're trying to prove, okay? All right, so generally, this is what a paragraph proof looks like, excuse me, a two-column proof looks like. Um, Note that the statements are on this side, okay, and the reasons are on this side. This is always the same, okay? Now, what you want to do is make sure that your proofs stay very neat. Oftentimes they can get very confusing very fast if they do not stay neat. My suggestion would be is to number the statements and the reasons. And if you still feel that it does not look organized enough, a lot of times what I have is, you write the statement and the reason for one thing, and then you just draw a line underneath, okay? So you will have lines underneath each one, okay? So that means even if you have, a statement and it's written right here, but then your reason isn't just one line, it's multiple lines, and you go on and on and on. Then you can draw another big line after that, and that can, and then you can start your next um, reason below it. Okay, that often makes it very easy to organize. Okay, so I'm going to use all this information to prove a particular proof, a two-column proof for you. We're going to be working on them a lot in class, so you will have a lot of, you'll feel very comfortable with them by the end. But just for notes purposes, we are going to work on one right now, okay? So this is using the postulates and theorems that you learned in the last class, uh, all about angles and such. So for instance, the corresponding angle theorem and things like that. So we are given that um, line A is parallel to B, and we need to prove that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3, okay? We need to prove that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. So my suggestion, and the thing I tell everybody, is start marking up your picture right away. And mark it up while you're doing your proof. It makes it a lot easier to organize your thoughts, not only in the two-column section, but also in your diagram. Okay, so in order to do this, I am going to mark that line A is parallel to line B, and I can use that using these little arrows. Okay, this tells me that line A is congruent to line B. Okay, and just like we said in our steps, the first step can always be your given information. You want to list your given information first, and that can be your reason. It is given. We know that line A is congruent to line B. Okay, now we need to start looking at these angles. We have angle 1, angle 2, and angle 3. Okay, well, the first thing you should notice is that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. And the reason for that is because vertical angles are congruent, okay? And you can write just that. You know that vertical angles are congruent. Another way you can write it is definition of vertical angles, okay? I would take that as well. But just stating vertical angles isn't always good enough, okay? You need to write definition or vertical angles are congruent, okay? So I'm going to also mark that. So I know that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. Okay? All right. Okay, now something else you should notice right away is that angle 2 is actually congruent to angle 3. And the reason being is that they're corresponding angles. So I can mark that again. Okay, so angle 2 is congruent to angle 3. All right, now by doing those 3 steps and going in this particular order, well, I now see that angle 1 is in fact congruent to angle 3, and my reasoning is because of the transitive property, okay? If I were to use that idea of the transitive property where I'm taking one statement and making it congruent to another statement, and taking that statement congruent to that statement, these two statements, in this case angle 1 and angle 3, must be congruent, okay? And that's what the transitive property states. All right, so in this case, this proof was only 4 steps long, which is a fairly short proof. A lot of times your proofs will get longer, and oftentimes they'll be 10 steps if possible. But for now, this should give you a really good idea of what a two-column proof looks like and how to use it. All right.